10 signs you're the family scapegoat. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tamie M. Joyce. I'm an empowerment life coach specializing in codependency and narcissistic abuse recovery for empaths, scapegoats, and awakening light leaders. If you're new to my channel, a very special welcome. Please take a second to say hello and introduce yourself in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a new video. So let's talk about 10 signs that you're the family scapegoat. But first, let's unpack the concept of what it means to be cast as the scapegoat in a sick family system. To begin with, the term originates from the Old Testament, where all the sins of the tribe were symbolically laid upon a goat, which was then cast out and banished into the wilderness, taking all of the tribe's transgressions and subsequent shame with it. Today, a scapegoat is a person who is blamed and shamed for other people's wrongdoings, and quite undeservedly so. This is a very common phenomenon in dysfunctional families, especially if one or more family members carry a lot of unresolved emotional wounding and trauma, or worse, are in active addiction, or have untreated personality disorders, whether they be diagnosed or undiagnosed. In the case of a highly narcissistic family, like the one I grew up in, it's inevitable that one member of the family will be cast as the family scapegoat. Narcissists need someone to project onto, and in a sick family system, the selection process follows a very certain criteria. The bottom line is, the family scapegoat bears the brunt of the narcissistic family member's anger. Anything and everything that goes wrong is somehow the scapegoat's fault. What's worse is, other codependent and narcissistic family members follow the primary narcissist's lead by either turning a blind eye to the abuse, choosing to agree that the so-called problem child deserves what they're getting, or worse yet, jumps on the bandwagon and joins in openly targeting and scapegoating as well. After all, it's a lot easier to blame someone else for things going wrong in the narcissist's life or the family at large than it is to accept responsibility for ourselves, our unresolved issues, the relationship crimes we've historically or are currently committing, own our shit, and clean it up. The reality, however, is every dysfunctional family system needs a scapegoat. That one person whose role it is to be the family punching bag and garbage bin, so to speak. That one person is cast in the role via what is typically a silent and unspoken agreement that says it's okay to target, hurt, harm, malign, lie to, lie about, and abuse, verbally, emotionally, or otherwise, sometimes even sexually, this one target in particular. This way, the toxic, empathy-impaired, and deeply unconscious tribe have a place to cast all of their blame, shame, and unresolved pain, fury, and trauma, lest the load become too much for them to bear, and they be forced to actually look at themselves and do their own work. And let's be real, work is, well, hard work, especially in the realm of taking one's own inventory, taking full responsibility for oneself, including our anger, our pain, and our shitty attitudes and behavior, and doing the consciousness work that healing and recovery is. And narcissists are not only far too unconscious, they're also far too entitled to be able to consider that they might actually have work to do. They're also deeply fear and shame-based, which makes the prospect of looking inward and doing their own work terrifying. So instead, they dump their shit all over the family scapegoat, like it's a full-time job, and they feel quite entitled to do so. Meanwhile, the golden children in the sick family system have an entirely different experience within the family unit, as they are often treated with relative kindness, decency, and respect, while also being insulated and protected in a myriad of ways. So not always, but certainly often enough, they can't even begin to relate to the plight of the scapegoat and what it is they're living. According to them, everything's fine, normal. With all of that said, let's dive into the 10 signs that you've been cast as the family scapegoat. Number 1, you often feel ignored, isolated, and unimportant. As the family scapegoat, you've likely never received the love, validation, acceptance, approval, nor consistent feelings of safety, security, and belonging, never mind positive time, energy, and attention from your parents, primary caretakers, or other family members in positions of authority over you. And the reasons for this might surprise you. The person cast as the family scapegoat, more often than not, is the most highly intuitive and sensitive member of the family, and therefore is most likely to see dysfunction and injustice, as well as abuse, more clearly, and be the one most likely to call it out for what it is, even as a young child. And toxic bullies and other empathy-impaired, often not too bright, sneaky, conniving, manipulative, and deceptive family members can't have that. And thus, the sheer contempt, disdain, and intolerance is communicated in subtle and not so subtle ways to the so-called problem child. If you landed on the planet as a star-seeded lightworker, or are otherwise a highly empathic human, just the frequency alone that you carry, have carried since conception, is enough to make deeply unconscious people very uncomfortable. The more narcissistic they are, the more uncomfortable you make them. And thus, it's easier for them to freeze you out and treat you with contempt and disdain, rather than to have to admit to themselves that the good in you disturbs the demons in them. Get it? Good. Moreover, the more likely you are to speak up or speak out, or more specifically, the more they've given you behind closed doors to speak up and speak out about, the more likely they are to go out of their way to discredit you as a preemptive measure. They may even go so far as to try to humiliate you in front of others, but only when they know they can get away with it, of course, which, if successful, works to keep the power dynamic in play and ensure that you know your place on the totem pole of the sick family system, which of course is way down here somewhere. What you need to understand is this. Active scapegoaters don't want you to receive any support or encouragement from others. For that reason, they'll often try to isolate you from other family members, extended family, as well as friends of the family. They'll do things like exclude you from family functions and lie about why you're not there. They'll make disparaging remarks, write nasty letters, and take every opportunity to gossip about you behind your back. They'll work to separate and isolate you emotionally and physically by creating unnecessary conflict and spreading rumors. All of this has one purpose: to keep you isolated so they can control the narrative specific to who and what you are. In other words, control others' perception and opinion of you. So make no mistake, scapegoaters want you to feel isolated, alone, and powerless, and depriving you of what might otherwise be any genuine sense of having a family connection and support system in place is one of their most effective tactics in accomplishing this. Number 2, somehow you're to blame for everything that goes wrong. This one's simple. You're to blame. Always. For everything. If it went wrong, you either did it or somehow caused it. If it happened, it's your fault. If it didn't happen, it's your fault. If someone was shitty to you, you deserved it. If someone betrayed, abandoned, or otherwise targeted and abused you, you brought it on yourself because you're fundamentally flawed, and besides, no one likes you anyway. I remember being carted off to a therapist at the age of 5 because, according to my covert narcissist stepmother, I was the cause of all the problems my alcoholic father and this extremely sick stepmonster were having. I was 5 years old. Nearly 50 years later, I still shake my head at this one. Another doozy was one of my very sick uncles accusing me, at the age of 14, of trying to break up someone else's marriage. People who were living in an entirely different province, as if a deeply traumatized 14-year-old has that kind of power. From a distance, no less. And knowing what I know today, I often wonder whose marriage he was in the process of destroying while spitting his accusations at me. Project much? Number 3, you're portrayed in a negative light to others. Hearing constant criticism, insults, and disparaging remarks is not only discouraging, it's painful. What's worse is when your family, the very people who are supposed to love you, be supportive of you, and have your back, go out of their way to paint you as a terribly unlikable and problematic person to anyone else who will listen. If you're the family scapegoat, you've probably had your character publicly attacked and assassinated in ways that have not only been hurtful, but deeply traumatizing. The harsh reality is, when you're the family scapegoat, your narcissistic family members want to convince others that you're not worthy of respect, Again, this is much easier than the prospect of openly admitting their own role in the family's dysfunction and the extent of the damage they've inflicted on you over decades of time. The truth wouldn't make them look very good, now would it? Furthermore, they can't afford to run the risk that outsiders might align themselves with and be supportive of you in any way. So, they go out of their way in big and small ways to make sure everyone sees you in a negative light, while simultaneously painting themselves as something far more innocent, kind, helpful, loving, angelic even, than they are even remotely close to being in reality. Number 4, you feel like the family punching bag. The family scapegoat is the person who bears the brunt of the family's pent-up frustration, anger, fury, and rage. If this is you, then you undoubtedly feel singled out, ridiculed, and find that you're often made into the butt of every joke. They'll rarely miss an opportunity to put you down or laugh at your expense. And unfortunately, it doesn't take long for outsiders and other relatives to follow in your family's behavior because they may not be aware of what's actually happening or the extent of the harm caused and the damage being done. At times, you may feel like you're going through life with a warning label attached to you. New friends and potential in-laws might get a clear message about your flawed character as portrayed by your family's perspective. There's nothing like meeting someone new and having them say, "Oh yeah, I've heard about you," with a knowing look, and not a nice one at that. And all thanks to the negative narrative your toxic family members run with when you're not in the room. Number 5, narcissistic family members project their own shortcomings, attitudes, and behavior onto you. Here's what that's like. They'll yell at you and accuse you of screaming at them. They'll go through life entitled and self-centered to the extreme, but accuse you of being selfish. I once had a highly narcissistic and very sick uncle who was a professional car thief, cause an enormous and for me very traumatic family drama by accusing me of being exactly what in fact he was, a thief. According to him, I had stolen a bag of jewelry that in reality had never gone missing. Again, project much? But there's more to it. Knowing what I know today, I can say with a great deal of confidence the reason he did so was because he had started dating one of my best friends at the time. This trauma he created out of thin air by projecting his own illicit and immoral behavior onto me served a few purposes for him, not least of which isolating me from her. But also, she had more than likely told him what I had shared with her in confidence many years prior, specifically the sexual abuse I had experienced as a child at the hands of his brother-in-law. Since he himself had perpetrated on me when I was 16, in his sick, narcissistic mind, he had to find a way to discredit me and annihilate my character in the eyes of anyone who mattered in order to ensure that any truth I might share in the future about his own sexually abusive behavior would not be believed if I dare ever open my mouth about it. And that's a true story. Now, if you've never been on the receiving end of actual narcissistic abuse, I know this sounds next level crazy, and that's because it is. If, on the other hand, you identify as the family scapegoat and have been on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, you know this is exactly how they operate. They'll do and say whatever it takes to protect their own ass, no matter how untrue, cruel, or bizarre, and no matter who gets hurt in the process. Now comment below and tell me whether or not you identify as the family scapegoat. Let me know in the comments section below. And if you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, there's a link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. Number 6, your good qualities, achievements, and success are diminished and downplayed. They can't be genuinely and sincerely happy for you, celebrate you, or allow others to see the light in you, the good in you, or the truth of who you are. Furthermore, I believe narcissists are incredibly envious by nature. They don't know how to cheer for anyone other than maybe their golden children, and only then because they see the golden child as an extension and reflection of themselves. They're fully scarcity-minded, and anything good you have going for you highlights their own lack, even if that's only perceived lack in their own minds. They're competitive, small, petty, jealous, and envious. So your successes and achievements, or any good thing you have going for you, will be downplayed and, if possible, sabotaged even, if they think they can get away with it. They're that mean. Number 7 of signs you're the family scapegoat: others ignore and enable the abuse. Other family members may see that you're the one being targeted and abused, and strangely, they choose to look away or downplay and minimize what's going on, either present day or what's gone on in the past. And for sure, one of the reasons they do this is pure cowardice. If you're the one being abused, then they, as well as their own offspring, are safe for the time being. Some might even join in on the targeting as a means of endearing themselves to and bonding with the narcissistic perpetrator. Either way, understand this: silence in the face of abuse, especially where children and minors are concerned, makes a person complicit. Those who sit around staring at their shoes or the ceiling pretending nothing's happening when someone's being targeted by a toxic bully are full participants in the abuse, period. They get no free passes here. And on that note, if you want to better understand dysfunctional family survival roles, you can watch this video here. Number 9, you also play the role of savior as well as scapegoat. Often, not always, but often enough, the family scapegoat has a pattern of also playing the role of savior. Regardless of how much you've been abused, you're also inevitably the one everyone runs to whenever there's a crisis. And this is because you're the most capable, and they know it. You're also the most reliable and highly empathic, as well as being the one most in need of validation and approval. So you're not likely going to say no, until, of course, you start doing some healing work, begin taking better care of yourself, and muster the courage to start setting boundaries with what is often a family that resembles a pack of hyenas, at least insofar as you're concerned. In the meantime, you'll put your hand up to play savior more often than not, in the hopes of finally being seen, accepted, and appreciated for the good, kind-hearted person you actually are. But it's an illusion. You're only approved of as long as you're useful. When you're no longer useful, or better yet, no longer a willing participant in your own exploitation, it'll be back to business as usual, the business of smearing and vilifying you. Here's how this works. They'll ask, and sometimes even beg, for your help when they need it, then turn around and treat you like goo on their shoe as soon as whatever the crisis du jour happens to be has passed and they're feeling confident again. When they don't want or need you for anything anymore, they'll be back to their old tricks of smearing you to smithereens in order to poison the hearts and minds of others towards you. Sound familiar? Number 10, let's talk about the detrimental effects of being the family scapegoat. Sadly, many people don't even recognize that they've been the scapegoat for decades. And when this is the only type of family life you've ever known, it's your normal, no matter how painful and sick the dynamics at play may be. It's easy to internalize the stress, end up with anxiety, depression, some form of addiction, and/or eating disorders, and then be further shamed and criticized for the struggles you deal with that are an exact net result of having been targeted and abused in this fashion since early childhood. And sadly, some scapegoats simply choose to shut down emotionally as a means of surviving what they're going through. They find ways to numb out so they don't have to feel much of anything. And as you can imagine, this can cause a myriad of problems in our adult relationships, since we tend to attract what is a vibrational match to our unresolved issues and our original family of origin wounding and trauma. This is called the repetition compulsion, and it's very much a subconscious pattern playing out in our adult relationships. So, if you're living out a pattern of attracting one narcissistic relationship after another, as well as finding yourself the scapegoat not only with your family, but also in other places like at the office, in friendships, in social circles, or with your in-laws, and you aren't walking away from that bullshit as soon as you see it, but rather you're staying stuck in the muck, it simply means you've got healing work to do. Give yourself the gift. It's time now. Your time. How can Tamie M Coaching help you? 4 ways. Number 1, Subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell to make sure you get my new video every Friday. Number 2, watch my free web class by clicking on the link in the description below. You'll learn about my personal journey and professional experience through decades of research specific to healing and recovery from codependency and narcissistic abuse. You'll also learn about some powerful strategies that you can begin to use today. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and you'd like to be supported by a stellar community of like-minded people who are focused on solutions that actually work, you can learn more about my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, by going to www.tamiemcoaching.com and clicking on programs and reviews for all the details. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to break free from painful relationship patterns permanently and actually make lasting progress in your healing and recovery, go to tamiemcoaching.com and click on Apply Now to learn more about how you can become my client.